You're probably not as productive as you could be right now because you either don't have a foolproof plan in place or you've been misguided by all of the terrible information out there right now. So especially for us medical students, our productivity is one of the leading indicators of our success and is what we spend a vast majority of our time thinking about, trying to improve. My name is Pierce and I'm an M2 at a US medical school. And if you're interested in improving your productivity, I'm gonna give you every key strategy I've been working to refine and I've used almost every day for the last 500 days that I've used to learn 2 years worth of lecture content in just 14 months and get accepted to medical school in the first place. These strategies have saved me so much time and have seriously multiplied my output. And after this video, if you consistently implement them, I know they'll work for you too. And a lot of people use productivity to mean very different things. So let's start by getting on the same page with what productivity means, which I define as your goal-oriented output over time, AKA your rate of goal-oriented output. So with that definition, we need to figure out how can we do the most in one day, and then how can we make that repeatable across many different days and stack those together to make the most productive system. Starting with number one, which is one of the most slept on points in my opinion, is that the most perfectly productive day actually starts the night before during your bedtime. And the first thing that comes to mind here is going to bed consistently at the same time. So many of us have different chronotypes, which means that we are either morning people or night owls. I'm kind of somewhere in between, but I've noticed that I can actually adapt this when I got into medical school. And this changed primarily based on the time that I went to bed. And this strategy actually works regardless of that. The most important thing is that you pick a time to go to bed and you are consistent with it. Your body will know to be tired at a certain time of day and to have energy at a certain time of day. What we want to optimize for here is that when you wake up in the morning, you have consistent, stable energy that slowly declines throughout the entire day. And then at nighttime, you're tired and can fall asleep, and you're not constantly changing this all of the time and messing with your sleep schedule. There are a lot of different variables that are gonna fly around here, like the amount of things that you have going on the weekdays versus on the weekends. What I would strongly encourage you to do here is try to be as consistent as possible with your sleep and wake times. They are the foundation for everything. So what I actually do is go to bed and wake up on the same time, whether it's a weekday or a weekend. What that means is that if I have something that is required of me at, let's say, 8 a.m. the earliest on a weekday, I'm going to set my schedule for when I'm waking up at 7 a.m. at a minimum so that I can get to that thing on weekdays. What that still means is that on weekends, I'm going to be waking up at 7 a.m. as well at a minimum. In reality, I actually wake up a little bit earlier than this, but we'll get to that in a minute. If this is something you haven't tried before, seriously, trust me, go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time with no exceptions whatsoever for 30 days and just see how it improves your energy levels. Your body will just start waking up, and at some point you probably won't even need an alarm because your body will be so in tune with your sleep and wake up times. Point number two that goes directly along with the first point is that the night before you want to have a solid routine and plan for the next part of the day that is pre-made from the night before so that you know all of the things that you're going to have to do for the next day when you wake up. I think it's safe for all of us to say that if we count on the version of ourselves in the morning when the alarm is going off to make all of the plans for the day, to be able to get up out of bed and have the most motivation possible, this is a recipe for disaster. We want to prevent that by going ahead and noting down all of the things that you want to do for the next morning. So in my case, I actually have a personal notebook. I'll either use that or an online Excel sheet to write down all of the things that I want to get done for the next day. Then what you're going to do is systematize that and rank them by the order of the most important to least important things. So what you're going to do in order to rank that is to think to yourself, what if I only could accomplish one thing tomorrow would move the needle on my goals the furthest? And then continue to ask that question until you've ranked every single thing that you want to do. And I would recommend, because we're going to have those consistent wake times, that you're going to have the most energy in the morning, go ahead and tackle the most difficult thing in the morning, aka eat the frog, and just get it over with so that you can build that momentum and keep things going. This is so simple, but it's worked for me so well. Whenever I get up and I go sit down in the morning to start work and I can't even think about the first thing to get started with, I already have everything listed out from the previous day of what I need to go ahead and get started with. So even if my mind is still waking up and getting into the flow of things, I'm ready to go. Number three also goes along with the first two, which is that when you wake up early enough to have time to work, you give yourself time to get the most important things done before your obligations for the day. And again, your energy is like a battery. You want to deploy the best amount of energy that you have in the morning towards the most critical pieces of work that you need to get done. And that way you can save the more monotonous and less focus intensive work for later in the day when you may not have as much energy or after all your classes. So in my case, for my pre-clerkship medical school classes, when we were learning all of the information, I would start at 8 a.m. and need to be there on campus. So what I would actually do is wake up around 5 a.m., get started on work around 5:30, and then have 2 or 3 hours of productive work before I even got to campus in the morning. And that's because by that time, if I just started my day out on campus, whenever I was leaving, I would have so little energy to want to get started on those daunting tasks for the day. But because I'm consistent with my sleep and my body knows exactly what to expect for energy levels throughout the day, I knew that I could get those things done and make things easier on myself later in the day and set myself up for success. And a bonus point here that I want to mention is that actually, whenever you get done with your, let's say 9 to 5 or your day on campus in medical school in my case, you'll want to be moving your body around. You've been sitting around for a long time. This is the perfect opportunity to go to the gym when otherwise you wouldn't have started on any of the personal work that you needed to get done outside of class and would have to justify it a lot harder to go to the gym. It would just be more difficult. You have more friction in place. But this is the perfect opportunity to get that midday workout in, late afternoon, whatever it is, after your obligations are done and you've had that productive morning block before you go into your later afternoon session. Number 4 is that you want to plan for the worst days. And what I mean by that is that this routine that you're going to be doing every single day, you want to make it repeatable even on the worst days, even on the days where you get out of bed and you're like, I seriously cannot do this today. I don't think it's going to work out. You don't want to be relying on motivation and ambition. You want to be able to just start it like clockwork and just get things moving right off the bat. And just from my experience from doing this over the last 500 days, I can tell you there are a significant portion of the days that go like this. And it is just so much easier to know that you just automatically have a system to roll into rather than the opposite, which is just going to be having no plan. You end up laying in bed forever, or you just end up sitting somewhere on campus trying to take a nap, falling asleep. You're in this limbo state where nothing gets done, but also no rest gets done. You're not optimizing for anything. But if you have a repeatable plan that always works for you, regardless of how bad the day is going, then that is the way to succeed. Number 5, this one is a little bit more person to person, but has worked for me so tremendously well, and I would never have expected it to, is to delay my eating in the morning until as late as I can, usually about 11 or 12 a.m. if I'm waking up at 5 or 6 a.m. And this is something that's been popularized a lot more recently on the internet with the trends like intermittent fasting. But really the point here for me has nothing to do with diet whatsoever. It's more so about my brain state. So for me, what I noticed over time and what I really think is probably the case for most of you watching this is that when you start to eat bigger meals earlier in the day for breakfast, lunch, what happens is that your blood flow goes to your digestive system to take care of those nutrients and deliver them to your body. But what you actually need that blood flow concentrating on is your brain and not focusing on the carb crash and all of the processing that's going on in your gut. I have found this to work tremendously well, and I wasn't great at it at first, but I've been able to add a little bit more time and a little bit more time throughout the day to when I can delay my first eating for the day. And this has also been supplemented by coffee a little bit. I've found caffeine to give you just a little bit of a boost on your energy levels and then suppress your appetite just a little bit as well to help you delay your feeding window. And I've slowly bumped this up over time until now where for the first 4 or 5 hours for the day, I'm able to just fully focus and not worry about eating. And I'm not even hungry until that time. And just like clockwork with my sleep cycle, I get hungry around that time and I'm ready to eat my lunch. This is something that I admit maybe will not work for everybody, but I seriously recommend you to try it because you just don't understand the level of impact that it has until you've tried it out for many days and you realize the amount of clarity, the reduced inflammation and cloudiness, brain fog that's going on after you're not eating all of those carbs early in the morning. Point number 6 is to know the difference between working on your goals and working in your goals. And if you don't know what I mean by this, this has everything to do with what you choose to focus on and what your most important tasks are for the day. So there are 2 different ways to approach it. Number 1 is to work in your goals. In our case, in medical school, what I do is I spend most of my time learning new content and reviewing old material, focusing on extracurriculars and components that I need to do just to maintain my life as a medical student. But working on my goals, I would consider that working in my goals, by the way. But working on my goals are things that further expand my scope of what is required of me. So things that are beyond what is required of me right now consist of things like research and also recording these videos, doing things that I'm passionate about, really just anything that is not absolutely required of me to be the best medical student that I can be, but is important for me to continue growing and expanding beyond what I'm currently doing. So I would encourage you that even though you do want to spend most of your day working in your goals and continue to maintain and grow yourself in whatever pursuits you're doing, in this case academically, I would also really suggest that you work on your goals and continue to broaden your horizons, learn new things, do things that you're passionate about, expand your scope and expertise, and you'll thank yourself later for it. So number 7, and this one is so key that I feel like I almost didn't even have to mention it, but it is to exercise to keep your body and mind healthy. Now, one thing I think a lot of people misconstrue is that they feel like exercise has nothing to do with their studying or their academics. And yes, people do say you need to do something outside of your academics so that you don't burn out, but I'm not even talking about burning out in this case. I'm talking about working out so that you can improve your mind and your brain function, your blood flow, reduce inflammation, keep yourself healthy, your energy levels stable, things that will actually improve your mental academic performance in the long run. I think we like to box exercise into a little category of just improving your body's fitness, and then forget that your brain is the master organ controlling all of this in the first place, and it is inextricably tied to your body's health. So even if it's not every day and you're incredibly busy outside of school, I would suggest strongly that you have some sort of routine in place a couple times a week to get 30 minutes or more of exercise in. Continue to maintain your health, cardiovascular fitness, so that you can maintain your energy levels and your physical and mental well-being. And that leads us to point number 8 here, which in my opinion is one of the most important mental frameworks that you need to adopt if you want to be productive over the long run, which is buy into the process of consistency and consistent improvement. Because if you don't believe in this, you will stop and it just will not continue to work for you. You are not going to become the best in your craft or the smartest medical student or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in one day. But what you can do is to continue improving day after day, when those who have been obsessed for just a couple days eventually drop out. The person who stays in for the long run and does things in a consistent way that is maintainable and shows consistent improvement over time is the one who inevitably wins in the long run. It's the classic tortoise in the hare situation. For me personally, I deeply believe that buying into this mental framework for the last 2 years has been one of the most important factors in contributing to my successes along the way. In retrospect, I'm almost never able to see the improvements that I make on a day-by-day basis, or even in that case, a week-by-week basis. Nobody ever walks into a gym and just becomes Mr. or Mrs. Olympia in a day or in a week. But when you continue to compound that consistency, when people inevitably drop off over time and they lose their passion and their vision for it, if you are consistent and focus on improving incrementally and not worrying about all of the excess things going on outside of your control, and you just do what you know to be true and do what you know is the best work that you can each and every day, in and out, knowing that you'll have some bad days and some good days, I promise you, you will see improvements over the long run, more so than you could ever imagine. And it's often repeated for this reason that many people way underestimate the amount of things that they can get done in 10 years, and they overestimate the amount of things that they can do in 1 year. In medical school, in my case, I have 4 years to do this, and my plan is to continue every single day to keep improving and let the time do its work. And for you, I would recommend thinking about this and applying this not only to your academics, but in your extracurriculars and your most wild and ambitious goals you have for yourself, because you seriously don't know what it is you just might be capable of if you stick with this for years, decades, and just see what happens. And again, this is going back to the previous points, but this will work for you so much more easily if you build a system that is repeatable and that you consistently will stick with. One of the last things I'm going to leave you with here that directly translates into productivity as a bonus tip that I'm extremely passionate about is that when you seek out to try to accomplish these things and you try to focus, you are inevitably going to be met with distractions. And I want you to remember that there's actually a sad irony out there that is adding things to your productivity system to make you more productive instead of removing the things that make you less productive. We've all seen these videos online of these 30-step morning routines and special drinks that you need to have, or special types of music to listen to, or walks to go on that you can add into your routine to make you more productive. And my thought is it's all really just kind of ridiculous. You just need to cut down on the things that are distracting you from the one thing that you know is the most important thing for you to complete for that day. And anything outside of that is merely a distraction, even if you sugarcoat it as a productivity system. Now, of course, I'm a big proponent of resting and getting that extra energy back for when you are productive later in the day, and you don't need to always be working. But I can tell you from firsthand experience of trying out all these productivity hacks that really the real hack is cutting all of the hacks out and just focusing on what's most important. Because going back to that equation of output over time, if any of those things decrease the amount of output that you have, aka doing all of the research on all of those productivity things, buying them, setting them up, trying them out, if you had just spent that time doing the one thing that you know you need to do, your productivity would have skyrocketed. So I've learned that the hard way, but I can't think of a better bonus tip to leave there. So with all that being said, you should now have a better grasp on how to think about productivity, some key strategies and mindset shifts that you should use when trying to implement a productivity system and be consistent with it, and then some of the fluff to avoid thinking about. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you want more med school insight videos, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming on this channel in the future.